3-3. We're going to look at question number 9. Okay, and question number 9 has fractions. And we need to find the slope. So what we have is we've got two ordered pairs. We've got 7/6, and we've got -1/7, and we've got 3/2 and 0. Now we want to work out these fractions, and we want to find the slope. And there's two ways of working these out. We can either work with the fractions, or we can clear the fractions. And I think we'll just clear the fractions. I think that's going to be our easiest way of dealing with this question, is probably clear them out. So again, we want to find our slope. Now, what's our formula for the slope? M equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus your x2. And where students make a mistake at more than anything else is they make a mistake in regards to the x and the y, because the y is on the top, but they're in the opposite order from the ordered pairs. So remember, this is x1, y1, x2, and y2. So we're going to plug in our values. So we've got -1/7 minus 0 over, down below we've got 7/6 minus 3/2. Now, if I want to clear out the fractions, which I think would probably be the best way to work through this one, and let me adjust that focus a little bit more here. I think that may actually clear it up just a little bit. It's hard to get it exactly right, but at least it looks a little bit better, I think. Yep. Okay, so we want to go ahead and clear out the fractions, and let's look at our denominators. Now, what do we have for our denominators? We have a 6 and a 2, so that common denominator is going to be a 6, and on the top we have a 7. So 6 and a 7, the least common denominator of 6 and 7 would be a what? 6 times 7, that's a 42, isn't it? Right? That's going to be the smallest one. So we can clear out all of our fractions by multiplying every single piece by a 42. And let's just go ahead and do that. Whatever we do to one part, we have to do to the other. And if every single part is multiplied by 42, it doesn't change it. So let's see what we've got here. 42 divided by 7. Okay, 42 divided by 7, that's a 6, times a -1. It makes it a -6. 0 is still 0, and we don't even have to worry about it because it's gone. What about down below? Well, 42 divided by 6, that's a 7, times 7 makes it a 49. And 42 divided by 2, well, 42 divided by 2, what is that, 21? Yep, 42 divided by 2 is 21, times a -3, well, that makes it a -63. Now, what do we've got? We've got a -6, and we've got 49 minus that 63. That's a -14, and we can reduce it down a bit because a negative and negative makes it a positive. 6 and 14 are both even, so that makes it a 3/7. So that would be your slope there. It's 3/7. Is everyone all right with how I worked that out and got that to all work out? Okay. And that's question number 9. Question 13 is next. 10 and 11 is the same thing. Those don't have fractions though, right? So they're a lot easier. You just plug the values in, calculate it down. 9 was the only really difficult one because that one had the fractions. And when it comes to fractions, you can either work them out or you can just clear them out. It doesn't matter. Either way is the same. Depending upon how many fractions I have, a lot of times I'll just clear them out. If I just have one, it might be easier to just work with it. Now, question 13, we have a picture, and we want to find the pitch of this road. So we've got a picture here, or the pitch of this roof. So we've got a roof on a house, and we want to find the pitch. Now, the slope, the pitch, and the grade are all the same. They're just different terms used in different fields. So the pitch of this roof is going to be the same as the slope of this roof. So the pitch equals that slope. And the slope is the rise over the run. And remember that the y goes on top, doesn't it? Right? Slope is always rise over run. And the y component is the top part because that's your rise. Now, looking at your picture, they give you the values. And they say x is 20. Let me move it up so we can see. Right? It says x is 20 and y is 5. So we just simply plug our values in and we reduce. So that would be 5 over 20, and that reduces down to be a pitch of 1/4. Okay, so that's all you had to do was remember the definition of the slope, which is the same as the pitch, same as the grade of a road, and that's rise over run, which means the y goes on the top and the x is down below. Okay, 14, grade is the same as the slope. So on 14, hill on a hiking trail goes up. That's your y, right? So 60 is the y. So 60 feet up, so that's 60 over a distance of 122. So that would be 60 over 122. And that's going to give you the grade, which is the same as the pitch, which is the same as the slope. Okay, so that was pretty easy too. What about 3-4? 3-4, we've got a couple of questions to look at, and then we still have to do 6 through 18, or 6 through 11, I mean. So we'll do 6 through 11 after we finish up 2, 13, and 18. And I do have a handout that's really going to help us with the last part of 3-4, because 3-4 and 3-5 kind of go together. So let's look at question number 2. And this is out of 3-4. And what we've got is this. We've got f of x equals a minus 6x minus 2. And we want the y-intercept, and we want the slope. Now, how does it work when we look at equations? When we don't have a graph, how do we find the slope? Well, we have a formula, a way it needs to be written to get these parts. And that's called the slope-intercept form. Now, f of x is the same as y. They can be used interchangeably. And you'll see this a lot. A lot of times you'll see f of x being used instead of y. It just depends upon the situation. And sometimes it might be better to use an f of x because it's cleaner than a y. If you're plugging values in, you use an f of x. If you're graphing, a lot of times you use a y. Now, this is our slope-intercept formula. The slope-intercept formula is y, and now this can also be f of x, either the same, is equal to mx plus b, and that m, well, that is the slope, and the b, well, that is your y-intercept, as an ordered pair, and that would be 0, comma b. So we want to take our equation here, right here, and we want to find our slope, and we want to find our y-intercept. Now, the number in front of the x is the slope. So in this question, what would our slope be? Our slope would be the -6, right? What about the y-intercept? And the y-intercept is not just -2. That's sometimes where students make a mistake. The y-intercept has to be written as an ordered pair. And as an ordered pair, that's going to be 0, what? Yep, -2. And that's it. That's all I wanted there was your slope, which is the number in front of the x, and the y-intercept written as an ordered pair. Now, f of x and y are the same. So if you ever see an f of x, you can use a y instead. They are exactly the same. It's just, in some cases, it might be easier to use an f of x. If you're plugging values in, function notation, which is what that is sometimes more advantageous. But they are equivalent. Question 13. Now for question 13, we want to graph this line. And so they give you a point, and then they give you a slope. There's 3 ways that we can graph a line. We can graph a line when you're given 2 points. You can just plot those 2 points, connect them together. That's what we did about an hour ago, right? We plotted 2 points, connected them together with a ruler, we were done. You can use a point and a slope to go with it to also graph the line, or you can graph a line from just an equation. Now they gave us a point and they gave us a slope. So the first thing that we do is we plot our point. Now again, where do students make a mistake? This is x and this is y. I see this happen a lot. Where are students going to try to put the point at? Right up here. It's not there, is it? No. Where is it at? 9, 0 would be over 9. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so right there is 9. Now, what is my slope? Okay, it is a -1/3. So that means we go down 1 and over what? 3. Now, it might go off that graph just a little bit. And if it does, just add on another little mark. Because I think it only goes to 11, and we probably need to go to 12. But you're going to have to go over 3 and down 1 unit. So we're right here at, okay, here's our point, 9, 0. And then we're going to have to go down 1 unit. Just make a triangle, down 1, and then over 1, 2, 3. And sometimes it's helpful to label that ordered pair. And that ordered pair would be at -1. Or sorry, not -1, +12. If I read it right, I about wrote it backwards there. So +12 because I added 3 to that. And then we went down 1, so that's going to be at -1. So you go down 1 and over 3. Connect them together now with your ruler or straight edge, and there is your graph. All right, so that's all you have to do is plot your point, use your slope, and you don't have to label the second ordered pair. A lot of times I do just so you can see it, but it would be at 12, -1, because you're going to take the 9, you're going to add 3, that makes it 12, down 1, that makes it a -1. And 18 is the last one of these, unless we need to add more. We're going to look at 18 for the last one here. And 18, we just need to look at the pictures. Okay? And some of these I made multiple choice because I want you to be able to look at a picture and see, okay, which one is it by process of elimination. And this is a skill that's good to have too. Whenever you take any sort of exam for other classes, you may have a lot of multiple choice questions. How's the best way to approach multiple choice questions? Well, the best way to approach them is by eliminating choices. So it gets you down, if you have to guess, you only have to guess like maybe 2 choices instead of 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to see which ones I can eliminate. And the first thing I look at is my equation. And when I look at this, that 4 is in front of the x, so that means my slope is 4 over 1. Now, that means when I look at the lines from left to right, what does it have to do? It's positive, so it has to go up. From left to right, it's a positive slope, so it's got to go up. So which ones can I eliminate? There's 2 of them that I can eliminate. Which 2 choices? Okay, well, let's look. This is 4. So when we talk about 4, that means that slope is going to look like this, right? It's going up, up from left to right. These are going what? This one has a negative slope, doesn't it? Right? A is going down, so it's gone. So A doesn't work. What about D? It doesn't work either, does it? So now we've got it down to just 2 of them. Now, which one is it from here? Well, now we look at the last part, the y-intercept, and that is 6. And we need to make sure that the graph has that point 0, 6 on it. And we know it's either B or it's C. Well, why can I eliminate C? Well, my y-intercept is right here at 0, what? 0, 6, so it should be right there. And that 0, 6, is that on that line at all? No. So that one doesn't work, so C is gone. But what about B? If I look right here, is that point 0, 6? All right, and is that on that line? Yes. So what's the only answer that we have by process of elimination? B. Do you see how I did that, though? And that's a handy skill to have, too, whenever you encounter multiple choice questions. Use the process of elimination to think about things and see which ones can I get rid of, and just slowly whittle it down to just maybe 1 or 2 choices at the most. All right, well, I think that's going to be most of them. So 18, that would be answer B. That should have now taken care of the questions out of 3, 4. Now we still have a little bit more to cover out of 3, 4, and we're going to be coming up with equations of lines. And this is what we're doing in the rest of 3, 4, and also in 3, 5. So to make it easy, I have a handout. And this handout is going to tell you exactly how to do these problems out of 3, 4 and 3, 5. The first page is going with 3, 4. The second 2 pages are going with 3, 5. And you know, and this is a flow chart. It's basically like a recipe. You do this, and you do this. So let's take a moment to talk about it. Now there's 3 pages here, and each page is used depending upon what you have. So the first page is what we're going to be focusing on right now. And the first page, we are going to be finding the equation of a line when you are given a point and you are given a slope. And this is going to go with questions 6 through 11. So 6 through 11, we're going to be using this flowchart. And this is out of 3, 4. So what do we do? Okay, this one is the easiest one. And it says, if you have a point and you have a slope, you follow it down, and what does it say to do? It says you use this formula right here. Okay, now, how you write your answer depends upon what the question wants. It's either going to be in standard form, which we'll cover here in a moment, or the one we're used to working with, which is what we use in 3-4, which is slope-intercept. So it either looks like this, or it looks like that. Now, the ones out of 3-4 use slope-intercept. The ones out of 3-5 use both. So whenever we work these out, we need to figure out how we write our answer. It's either the x and the y are on the left, or the y is by itself on the left. One or the other. So let's look at a few of these. And I'm just going to make up a couple of questions for us to work through. And we're going to be finding the equation of the line, and these are going to be in slope-intercept form. When we look at the ones in 3-5, it can be either one. So I'm going to give you a slope, and I'm going to give you a point, and we're going to find the answer in slope-intercept form. So we're still in 3-4, and this goes with 6 through 11. So 6 through 11 in your homework. This is going to go with 6 through 11. I'm going to make up some, and we're going to work them out. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be finding the equation in slope-intercept form. I'm going to give you a point, and I'm going to give you a slope. And so we'll start off with this one. Now, this flow chart is going to make it much easier. It tells you exactly what to do, and you just follow it verbatim. It's just like directions. It's just a recipe. It's just a visual way to look at this, just like, think about it like a recipe. So, why does it fit in this page? Are we trying to find the equation of a line when you're given a point and a slope? Do I have a point and a slope? Yes, that's what I'm given, right? Point and a slope. So, what does the arrow say to do? Use this formula. So that's our formula. So we're going to use the point-slope formula. And my formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus your x1. And when I look at my ordered pair, this is x1, y1. All right, so we follow it down. We have a point and we have a slope. So we are going to use that point-slope formula. We plug our values in. So let's plug our values in. Now, the y stays the same. But what is y1? From our ordered pair, y1 is what? 2. So you bring the sign down. Right, so the negative comes down with it. So watch that. So the left-hand side is y minus 2 equals. On the right-hand side, what is my slope? 4. And then it's going to be x minus what? 8. Is everyone okay with the values that I plugged in there? Right? So you plug the x1 and the y1 in. The x and the y, they stay the same. Now, once I've done that, what do we want? We want this answer in what form? Slope-intercept form. So, look at your flow chart here. We just did this. What does my answer need to look like? That. So it needs to look like that. So it needs to look like y equals mx plus b. That's what it needs to look like. So we're going to go ahead and make this look like that. How do we do that? Well, we clean it up by distributing that 4 through. So that's y minus 2 equals, when you distribute through, 4x minus 4 times 8 is a 32. And how do we make it look like this? Well, this has the y by itself. So does that 2 belong on the left-hand side? Nope. So what do we need to do with it? Add it, and now we're done. So what is my answer in slope-intercept form? Well, it is 4x minus 30. The left-hand side is y, so y equals 4x minus 30 there. A lot of times, students try to make these more difficult than what they are. Follow the directions. It's a step-by-step procedure. There's different ways of doing these. I like to do them in a straightforward step-by-step direction. It's just like following a recipe. You do this, you do this, you do this, and you're done. Let's try another one. And these are all going to be in slope-intercept form. Now, when we move on to the next section, there'll be some in slope, and we'll talk about standard. We'll probably do 3 of these, and then we'll move on to the next section and talk about standard form. So we want to find the equation and want this in slope-intercept form. And I'm going to give you a point and a slope. So how about 5, 0? And I'm going to give you a slope of minus 2/3. Because you can have a fraction. Fractions can be there. What do we have? Point and a what? Slope. Here we are. What do we do? Point slope. Follow the directions. Don't make it more difficult. You just use the point slope formula. Which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I always like to write it down so I have that formula, so I can visually see how it all goes together. So transferring our numbers, this is x1, this is y1. So we've got y minus y1 is 0 equals, we've got a minus 2/3 times x minus 5, isn't it? All right, so sometimes you may have to clear the fractions, but in this case, we're not going to have to do that because we can keep them. So we distribute that minus 2/3 through. Now the left-hand side is done because y minus 0 is still what? Y, right? Because 0 doesn't change it at all. So that just comes down as a y, doesn't it? So it's done. Left-hand side is finished. What about the right-hand side? Well, we distribute through, and that gives me a minus 2/3 x, right? Now, what about the negative and the negative on the second piece? Negative and negative makes it a positive, and 2 times 5 makes it a 10/3. And that's it. How do I know I'm done? Because what does it need to look like? It needs to look like this. It must look like y equals mx plus b. Does it resemble that? Yes. Solve for y, so we know we are done. Let's try another one. Let's try and find the equation in slope-intercept form. I'm going to give you a point. How about we use a minus 3, positive 4, and I'm going to give you a slope of minus 3/5. So, very, very similar to the last one. We do have a fraction. Now, this one we're probably going to have to clear the fraction. to be able to make it easier to solve it for y. So first thing we do is we identify what we have. What do we have? Point and a slope. So we use the first page. Okay. Point slope formula is next. So that's what we're going to use. And that is y minus y1 equals m times x minus your x1. So we're on top of that. And what do we do next after that? Plug our values in. So we come up to our ordered pair, and we label that x1 and y1. So there's that. Plugging our values in. We've got to be very careful about double negatives. So that's going to be y minus 4 on the left. We've got a minus 3/5 for the m. We've got an x that comes down. And what is x1? Watch the signs there. x1 is a minus 3. So that's a minus, so that actually makes it then a what? Plus. Is everyone okay with that so far? Now, we're going to have to go ahead and distribute that 3/5 through. That minus 3/5 is going to be distributed or pushed through. And then we'll clear the fractions from there. So let's go ahead and deal with that. The last part of 3-4 and 3-5 is all algebra. There's no graphing. It's just working with equations. So that becomes now y minus 4. That stays the same. We've got a minus 3/5 x. Now, negative and negative makes it positive. Times another negative makes it a negative. And 3 times 3 makes it a 9 over 5. Now, I need to solve this for y, and I still need to add that 4 over. So let's clear the fractions out so that I can then add that 4 over. My denominators are 5, so I'm going to multiply everything now by a 5. And that's going to clear all of it out. And that leaves me now with 5y minus 20 equals a minus 3x minus 9. We should know what to do from here. Now, what does it need to look like? It needs to look like this. So it must look like this. Y equals mx plus b. So that's what it must look like. So it must look like this. How do we get it there? Well, we add our 20. So that is then 5y equals a minus 3x. And 20 minus 9 is a positive 11. We divide then by our 5, and we are now finished. So our answer in slope-intercept form would be y equals now minus 3/5 x plus 11/5. And that's it. So that should now finish up 3-4. We're going to talk just a little bit about 3-5 before we take our break. So we're just going to talk quickly about the difference between slope-intercept and standard form and how to convert them. This will be a quick 5-minute little discussion, and that'll save us from having to do it when we come back from break. So in 3-5, there's two ways that we can write equations of a line. There is slope-intercept form, which is what we're familiar with. And that's just solving it for y, and that's y equals mx plus b. Okay? So this is one way that you can write your answer. Another way that you can write the answer is what's called standard form. And standard form is used when you don't have to graph something. When you want to work with systems of equations, you work in standard form. And standard form is ax plus by equals C. Now, it has some limitations because A must be positive. So it has to start off with a positive value. And A, B, and C must be whole numbers. So no fractions or decimals. So no fractions or decimals. So there are two different ways of writing your answer. And if you look at that flow chart that we just did a moment ago, remember, you either write your answer in standard form, okay, or you write it in slope-intercept form. Now, what's the difference between them? Slope-intercept has been solved for y. And y is on the left-hand side. What about standard form? X and the y are both on the left, and it must start off with a positive x value. A, B, and C must be whole numbers, so no fractions or decimals. So now we're going to work with a couple of these. We're going to convert them or rewrite them. So let's do one where we just write it in slope-intercept form, just so we remember how these work. Okay, right now it's actually in standard form. Okay, I want you to write this in slope-intercept form. Now to write this in slope-intercept form, what does it need to look like? Right, slope-intercept form looks like this, doesn't it? Which is what we've done many, many times. So what do we need to do? We need to get it in slope-intercept, we have to write this with the y on the left. So the 5x has to go to the other side. So 7y equals now a minus 5x plus 2. And we're going to divide by our 7. And now we've got it in slope-intercept form because now it is minus 5/7 x plus 2/7. That is in slope-intercept form. Now we'll do two of them in standard, and then we'll take a short break. That way when we come back, we'll just be able to go through the 2 pages in our flow chart. So I want to really try to get through standard form and slope-intercept before we take our break. So let's do 2 of these in standard. Now, what's important about standard is you cannot have fractions. So we're going to write this in standard form. And how about we have y equals 1/3 x plus 2. Now, we need to get this in standard form. And what does standard form look like? Well, standard form looks like this. ax plus by equals what? C. So the x and the y have to both be on the left. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that 1/3 over. Now it's close to being in standard form, but not quite. What can we not have in standard form? Fractions. Okay, so that's one thing. So let's clear the fractions. How would you clear that fraction out? Multiply everything by what? Can someone tell me? 3. Yep. Very simple there. Multiply it all by 3. And so if I multiply it all by 3, that gives me a minus x, because those cancel. 3 times y, that's a 3y. And 3 times 2, that makes it a 6. Now, it is still not in standard form, right? Because in standard form, we have to make sure it has a positive in front of the x. How do we handle it? Ours is negative. How do we switch those signs? Well, we multiply everything by a negative. That's going to switch our signs out. And then our answer will be in standard form. So the negative is distributed through, and that makes it a positive x, which is what we want. We have a minus 3y, and then we have a minus 6 there. So there is your answer in standard form. Let's do one more, and then we'll take a short break. Come back, and at least maybe not finish up 3-5, but at least make a good headway in 3-5. Okay, so let's do one more, and we're going to again write this in standard form. And let's just look at this one. How about x equals minus 5y plus 9. So there's really not much to do with this one. Okay, this one's not in slope-intercept form either, because slope-intercept form, it would be y equals. This is an x equals, so it's not in any form at all. Now, we want to go ahead and put this in standard form, and there's really not much to do with this one. To get it in standard form, what has to happen? The x and the y have to be on the same side, right? So what does that 5y have to do? It's negative, so all I have to do is move it over. Now, when I write this in standard form, the x goes first. Always, always make sure that the x goes first. That's just the way that we write things. So that is x plus 5y, and that equals now what? 9. Is this in standard form? Yes or no? Yes. How do I know that it is in standard form? Are the x's and the y's on the same side? On the left. Yes, that's step number 1. Step number 2, are there any fractions or decimals? No, so it cleared that step. Step number 3 is make sure that the x is positive. Is the x positive? Yes, so it cleared those 3 steps. X, y are on the left, which it should be. No fractions or decimals, and that x is positive. If it clears all 3 of those, then it is in standard form. So let's go ahead now and take a short break. We'll meet back around 10:10, and then we'll finish up, or at least get a good portion of 3-5 finished.